Today we're at Cactus High School for the Arizona Robotics League. Last season, the Arizona Diamondbacks Foundation and Honeywell invested in this playing surface that you see behind me to give first robotics teams in Arizona a chance to practice their skills during their off season. And to come and see it today is absolutely incredible.
The Arizona Robotics League is a place where teams can maximize the use of their resources because it is a free event. All teams get to participate for free, and this is all thanks to our sponsors like the Arizona Diamondbacks and Honeywell.
We are hoping that these events combined with our regular season stuff really inspires the community to keep their programs around for a longer period of time, and we can overall grow STEM in Phoenix and all of Arizona.
Hello everyone, welcome on this special edition Thursday night episode of the ARL Extra Innings, the show where we recap what went down at the most recent ARL qualifying event, in this case the June qualifier event. My name is Luke, I am one of the ARL program directors. Joining me tonight is Will. We're going to have a little bit of a brief episode for you tonight. Kind of had some scheduling snafus this week. My bad. Completely my fault. So we haven't prepared quite as much as we would have liked, but we were all there, and so we can kind of just talk about the event. I thought personally that it went really well. I thought everyone did a great job. I was really impressed, and we'll get into it, I'm sure. I was really impressed at the improvements some of the teams we hadn't seen yet made, and I was really impressed. Sorry. You want to say hi? You can see ears. You can see the puppy's ears. You can't see anything else. Go on. Go on. All right. Sorry, my dog made an appearance. She's gone. I was really impressed at the improvements some of the teams we hadn't seen yet this season made, and really impressed at some of the improvements that teams we saw in May made before June. Some of our bigger teams that we've seen at all of our ARL events thus far, both last year and this year, were not there. So we saw it was an opportunity for some of our other teams to step up, and they did. And we had some really interesting playoff matches, including an upset. So I'm excited to get into it. So without further ado, Will, how are you?
Doing great. Glad to be back on the show. Got through another ARL, survived somehow. Voice intact as well. So
I did get a couple texts concerned about your voice. They were watching the VOD on our YouTube channel, by the way. All the match videos are up. They were watching the VODs and they were a little concerned about your voice. How is that?
voice is good. Voice is good. Just have some tea. Not talk for a week about there, and it just works out. It just fixes itself. So
do you have a go-to regimen for keeping your voice fresh between events? Do you have like a remedy after events? What for our inspiring MCs at home? What do you do?
No, I don't. Actually, I was talking to one of the other committee members about this, and they were just like rolling their eyes. But definitely, what I do the morning of, and I try to do the day before of competition, is I don't have a lot of sugar-based drinks, so I don't drink energy drinks as much anymore, and definitely not like the morning of. So I'll just drink like hot coffee, black, maybe some creamer, but usually just like stick to water and straight up coffee. Otherwise, it'll just like tear through your throat. As I learned last year with a lot of ARLs, that's something that Don Knight, your regular Arizona game announcer, taught me. So
you could say that your experience you're gaining with ARL is just helping you in your everyday life.
Yeah, definitely. The training I got at ARL translates to my regular life, even as an adult, I guess.
And you have a job
for coffee.
Okay.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said you have a job now. So you're.
It's true. I do have a job.
You can just drink black coffee.
Yeah.
How did you think the event went?
I thought it was really fun. I'm always happy to have the desk around. I definitely like having the analysts in between matches, break everything down, see their point of view. We got a lot of, perspectives that I'm not, usually accustomed to, that I thought were really good. Shout out to Izzy, shout out to Grace. They went into deep dives in between that, all with like in a minute. I felt like I was hearing like this whole like video essay of stuff, but no, we got this whole talk about like controllers, how different teams use those, different types of drivetrains, and what the advantages, disadvantages of some of those are. All while they were breaking down matches, and I thought that was amazing. So that's glad to have that.
Yeah, I'm hoping, like from a program director, show running point of view, and you can attest from being on the planning committee that we made a big push this event to kind of up our presentation, right? The overall show of it, right? Not just the fact that we're a bunch of FRC teams in the community getting together to have fun with robots, but that we really want this event to be covered really well, and to, like, if it's something you were tuning into on the Twitch channel, that you could watch it from kind of end to end and be entertained the whole time. So obviously a huge difference was that between the May and the June event, we brought back the ARL analyst desk. And if you were one of our ARL teams last year, that it was a huge upgrade compared, which is kind of why we didn't have it in May, was that I didn't want to just bring back the same weird looking booth where me or Adam were just standing up there kind of rambling on. Really wanted to up the presentation factor and really make it a point that a point of emphasis, like that's something you listen to between matches. And you're absolutely right, Grace and Izzy knocked it out of the park. I know the audio was kind of an issue at the event, and we're going to work on that between events. It's we're slowly learning as we go, but shout out to some of our video editors and the things that they did with our interlude videos. I thought it was really cool, the Arizona history videos, and the getting a chance to look at the Impact Award videos from the teams that won this past year. And we're going to continue that for our future events. So I thought that was all really cool. So obviously I'm not in the audience, but I'm hoping that from an audience perspective, that was cool too. I know there's downtime between matches, and we were trying to fill that downtime with not just the typical, cha-cha slide type of deal, right? We're trying to fill it with some quality content. Not that the cha-cha slide isn't quality content. It might not be. I don't know.
I get my exercise. That's how I get my steps in, is from the cha-cha slide. I gain a pound if we don't do it at an event.
Okay.
It's in my contract.
That's fair. So we need to add it back is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, we did do it, I think, because we had the field delays.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe we can jump into that a little bit. We could talk a little bit of maybe some of the issues we had at this past event, or maybe some of the quirks of it, and then we can dive into obviously the event recap and kind of our thoughts on strategy and the ARL rankings for the season. If you watched or were attending, you know that our Phantom robots are back, but in a bit of a different way. If you were at the May event, you know that we use something called Phantom robots to fill in for not having a large number of teams, and in qualification, these Phantom robots are quite literally that. They're not rural, but they're in the system so that we can generate the full match schedule. And they are given a free game piece scored anywhere they want in autonomous, and they are given a balance. If the bridge is level, they're given a 10-point balance. If it's not level, they are giving a 7-point balance, right? So if you don't balance anyone on the bridge during your match, you have a Phantom, you get 10 points because there is a ghost up there, right? So we brought them back, and we actually brought back the most we've ever brought. And it was actually not because we didn't have enough teams. We actually had exactly 12 robots, so we could have generated a match schedule and for the whole day with just real robots. We chose to fill with Phantoms. Great idea, by the way. Huge idea. Awesome. Couldn't be happier with it, actually. We chose to fill with Phantoms till we had 18 robots, so that no one would have a back-to-back, or that we were able to limit the back-to-backs to like 1 or 2 or 3 of the event. Where if you're someone who comes to a lot of ARLs, you know that sometimes you have a back-to-back or a back-to-back-to-back, right? And there's just not a lot of time, and if you break one thing, then you're kind of screwed for the next 2. Or you're more likely to break something in the back-to-backs because you don't have enough time to go through your checks, right? So I thought that went swimmingly. I'd love to gather some input from some of the teams that competed. I know it's not an ideal situation, right? I don't want to have Phantom robots, but I think
what's worse is back-to-backs where teams can break and then they just like lose RP or they lose out on matches because, you know, they just can't get it fixed in time. It felt like, at least during quals, we didn't have a lot of those maybe delays that we were having at our last event because we needed to let a robot cool down. Will, how'd you think it went? I don't know. I mean,
No, I mean definitely from the scoring table side, like it looked like teams were having an easier time queuing. It looked like things were going really like smooth for that. I mean, definitely the students were less gassed than they seemed like they were in May. So you know, I thought from that standpoint it was really good. We also had mostly exciting matches for in terms of like teams that matched up, which was really good. There wasn't a lot of it's just a bunch of Phantom robots, barring there was a 3-bot alliance versus 3 Phantom alliance, but that was one match, and then there was Plasma against no one. That was, you know, besides those 2 matches though, I mean, like it really did make it a lot easier on the team so that they were able to compete at, you know, that level and they were able to keep things going. So I'd say that from my point of view, it was really good. You know, hopefully we'll hear more from the teams. And even if you're in the chat and you're a team or a student, coach, mentor, and you just want to say how it felt for you in terms of getting like the time in between matches, let us know.
Yeah, we definitely had some weird ones, right? Like you're saying, like Plasma versus no one in the last match. And I don't think it affected too much, right? Like when we look at the rankings, it'll be pretty clear that I don't think Plasma needed that last match to rank 1, right? Like 24-3 was going to secure that regardless. And you're right. Yeah, we encountered a couple matches where it was like, well, this is kind of awkward. You could, you know, but for the most part, I think it went pretty well. And at the end of the day, the teams that are there, they basically got the same number of matches that they would have gotten regardless, right? If you look at the May event, we basically played 9 to 10 matches, right, in quals. And we got through the entire schedule for the June event, which is actually, I think, maybe a first time ever. We literally got to the end of the schedule. We didn't truncate any matches, and every team got 9, which is great. It's actually great. We only ran about 10 minutes behind schedule, and so that was perfect. So that was something. If you're watching Phantom Robots, don't think it played a huge deal. They couldn't be picked, right? Yeah, and you're right, absolutely right in the chat. The redo match, yeah. So we ran 10 minutes behind, 15 minutes behind, and we had to play a redo match. So we actually ran pretty much right on time. So shout out to field volunteers and the teams, right? Everybody was out on time, queuing. It went really well. I'm hoping I know I say this every time, but I haven't lied yet. As we increase the number of teams at every event, we can keep that same kind of formula, right? If we have 18 teams at our next event, and obviously we have no Phantoms, that we should see the same thing. At least 9 qualifications, run right about on schedule, and hopefully get out of there by 5:30. We were out of there, or at least the team, like the finals were over very early compared to some past events this time around. So, yeah. All right.
I think it was the quickest that field staff got out of there.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Cool. Well, I guess without further ado, we can kind of dive into qualifications maybe. Essentially, at the end of the day, 2403 kind of ran away with it, Will. If we take a look at the rankings, they were kind of almost a full ranking point ahead of the next closest team. And I don't think it's a stretch. They literally, obviously, they have a good robot, right? And they've made improvements, right? They were scoring cones at this event, which they weren't doing in May. It's a huge change. Changes that robot and the rest of the season dynamic by a lot. But I don't think it's a stretch to say that 2403 competed at the May ARL, and they came out in the June ARL like literally on fire, right? Went 9-0. They went undefeated this event, didn't lose in playoffs, right? Spoiler. So what did you think about 2403's performance?
No, there was no rest. Like they were just ready to go. They were on top of it. I didn't see the rank points because I barely look at a lot of stuff during the event. So that's crazy to see like the difference there. And it is, I mean, 2.77 is like pretty close to as good as teams were last year. I mean, I don't remember a team going to 3 RP at last year's ARL, if I'm correct, right? They were all like 2.7, 2.8. We had like a 2.9, which was crazy last year.
Yeah,
but
so in May, and we're jumping ahead a little bit. We'll cover it, but in May, 498 had a 2.9 ranking score, right? With less teams, right? Obviously. But yeah, so that's pretty big, right? Above the 2.5 is actually right. If you really want to be at the top of the rankings for championship wise, you need to win, obviously, and you need to win with at least a 2.5 or above. Right, because that's 498. Right, so now Plasma has won an event, right? 2403. When we look at the rankings at the end, they've won an event with an RP below 2.5 and above 2.5. So that's the threshold for grabbing that number one seed. Someone were to overtake that, they'd either have to tie them with that same performance and then tiebreaker them out, or win an event with either 2.5 RP performances or above a 3, right? Just outright, they have a 3.0 or higher. One thing that's really interesting to look at here, get my cursor up here so maybe you can follow, right? Between 2403 and 991, if we look at the charge station score, 991 is actually higher, right, on the charge station score, and on the auto score, they're dead tied. So what this tells me, is that 2403 is some smart cookies and they know how to strategize, right? They just didn't lose. They flat out won all their matches, right? Where, 991 dropped 3, right? And so those are pretty crucial RPs, but when you look at their overall performance with the robots, they're actually pretty close. And I think it's a lot closer than people maybe would have thought going into it. We can get to 991 now, but they really impressed me. They really surprised me, at least just in the improvements from the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They had a rocky start to the year at Arizona East. They went out to Vegas, definitely improved a lot of things, did, pretty good there. But, I mean, hitting the stage at ARL June, minus a few hiccups with, a red line on their intake, maybe dying or getting disconnected. I mean, They were scoring the high cones, scoring high cubes.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to say they're our best cone scorer.
No.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, and I liked their game, right? They kind of knew. I mean, they maybe first of all, wink, wink. They were there on Friday night practicing. So if your team felt like you came out of the gate slow on Saturday, just as a reminder, Friday nights are open for load-in and we run practice matches. So especially if it's your first ARL event, heavily suggest that you load in early on Friday night and you utilize that practice time. I think once 991 settled into this, we're just going to cycle across the field. We're going to go right where we know that cone is. We're going to go right to our human player. We're going to grab it and we're going to drive back across the field. I think they looked great. And I think some of the teams, it's going to be a theme, probably talk about playoffs a little bit. Some of our teams could probably benefit overall by just forgetting pieces in the middle of the field or on the ground exist. And they just go right for where they know they're going to get a piece, a game piece, right? But yeah, really impressed by 991. Not too far behind let's just round out the top 4 from the event, right? We had 4 captains, so let's round out the top 4. We had 1165 and 3944. I got to say, shout out to 1165 for a multitude of reasons. Reason number 1 being they brought 3 robots, right? That's awesome. And all 3 robots were they you know what I mean? They were doing something different, right? They didn't just have their main robot and then another robot kind of driving around in the field playing defense, right? Which isn't a bad thing. Please bring as many robots as you want, but to take the time and to utilize your students to build upon extra drivetrain, awesome, right? They're all just engineering challenges that can get you practice. So I thought that was really cool. And their competition robot wise, their main robot, I thought looked immensely better than it did during the regular season. I didn't get a chance to watch it too much at the championship, but I did spend a lot of time with them and it during the Arizona West playoffs. And not just the driving, but the arm itself was kind of night and day. And they were hitting their mid and high shots really accurately, which is really impressive, seeing as how it visually seems like it would not be accurate because it kind of shoots while picking its arm up, right? So it's kind of
it's kind of like, well, that seems like it could be mistimed a lot, but either by practice or I don't know, I don't know why my brain thinks it might be inaccurate. It looked really good. And for being, I mean, in the top, if we take a look here, right? Look at the top 4. They're the only tank drive, right? So swerve, 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 and they're a tank drive in the top 4. If we look at the data, right? Their charge station score is a lot lower, and that could mean one or two things, right? Number one, maybe they're not using the charge station and auto a lot. We know they have a 2-cube auto. They are probably running that a lot during quals. Not probably, they were, right? And it can mean that they had a lot of their matches where they were like, well, we don't even need to balance because we have a phantom robot or we have another teammate that can do that. So someone else is going to do it, right? And then if you look at their auto score, it's a little bit lower, right? Because they're scoring cubes low sometimes, right? But they have a 1.77 average going 6-3. And so that means, again, oops, wrong scene. That means, again, that the strategy is working, right? Their strategy was good going 6-3, right? Especially, it's harder to go 6-3 when you can't score things high. You can't, right? And you can't score cones, right? Because you're limited to either strategizing with your teammates. I know this very personally. When you can't score cones, you're limited to how many cones your teammates can score for links that are a mid or high, right? And all you can really control are your low links, which is a low point value, unless you run up the score with them, right? So I was very impressed by that. And I know we were both talking, but I'll let you take it away. We were both impressed by 3944, their first showing. They only went to one event, right? One regional this year, so this is their first ARL showing, and we were both pretty impressed.
Yeah, 3944. I mean, they've got the bones of a really good robot. They've got that every bot intake. They're on swerve. You know, they can pick up off the ground even cones as long as they're upright. Although sometimes, you know, they're spending a lot of time going for these upright cones when really they should just head straight to that double substation and just get them right off the shelf. But I mean, this was a robot that at the beginning of the event, you know, they were training the driver. They were getting used to putting cones onto the poles, putting them into the cone nodes. But once they got used to it, they got the feel of lining it up. I mean, they could do it, you know, doesn't matter which align station they were in front of. I mean, they could do it on the far one from them. They, you know, that driver was really in tune with that robot. They were zipping around the field. They were doing really well at getting low cubes off the ground and putting those, you know, low cubes or cubes that aren't scored in the community zone and putting them on that high shelf for the cone, or for the cube, excuse me. I mean, we saw this robot, like, you know, just completely trend all the way up, and near the end of playoffs, I mean, it actually, just in playoffs in general, they were doing a lot of cycles. They did two high links just by themselves, right?
Yeah,
They're getting those cones.
Yeah, we can jump right into playoffs from here. Yeah, right. You're right. I think what you're saying is very on point with 3944. I think that their potential is quite high, right? If they kind of tighten up maybe the pathing they're taking, the speed at which they're driving, and maybe the pieces they're choosing. I think that's the big thing, like you kind of brought up. Overall, my final thoughts on quals, we had a lot more piece movement than we saw in May, and that was awesome. Like, whether it was 7755, like yeeting cubes, like just physically with its bumper over the bridge, or 1165C, B, one of the letters, that had literally a flywheel, like a flinging cubes. We saw a lot more cube movement than I was even expecting. And so I might, just by rewatching all the matches and some of playoffs, we'll get into that. Please, I'm begging, complete your links. Don't score a cube mid if you're not going to complete the mid link. Just score it low. Complete the links, right? Links are huge. And take the extra 2 seconds, drive before you balance, make sure all your cubes are pushed in. So many matches, links were taken off the board or not completed because they were either missing one cube and there was like a cube mid for no reason, right? Or there was like cubes like just right outside, right? With the strategy of yeeting the cube in, right? We just talked about two robots who did that really impressively. This is not necessarily going to nestle nicely, and someone has to then go in and push that cube or whatever in. So you want to make sure that you're taking the time to do that. It's a perfect job if you have a defensive robot or a robot who's not going to balance. Have them come back in and do that at the end of the game, and make sure make sure they're not going to touch the bridge, and you're good to go, right? If you have phantom robots on your team, just don't even balance if you think you're going to get the RP anyway. Just push all those cubes in and make sure you get those links, because there were a lot of leftover link, like the links that were just left on the field, right? And just those are free points. So those are
Untucked cubes made or break. Like five matches were decided by one cube that was like sticking out. It was insane.
Yeah, I mean the point values in this game are so close, right? We've been playing it for so long. I'm sure everyone knows, right? But the point values for everything are so small, and the differences between them are so small that something as simple as a link credit can be right, can make or break a match, right? Absolutely. All right, so after our 20 qualifications, 21 if you count the redo, was it 20?
It's 27
matches. Yikes. After
28.
our 28, counted the redo, we were left with the following alliances. Overall, not too much of a surprise. 2403 took the best cone scoring robot there, and together with its own cone scoring prowess and it being the best cube scoring robot there, like in terms of all over, it was kind of just a no-brainer there. I will say that I was a little surprised by 1165's pick of 6352. Now, I don't have any scouting data. Right? So I'm just going off of what I saw on the field. But I think 6352 and 3944 are kind of on par with each other, at least by playoffs. Maybe one was more rigid than the other, although 6352 they both broke down several times, right? Just various times of the day. It seemed like if it were me, I would have gone with the swerve, right? So that it can maneuver in and out and score those cones, right? 1165 is a great cube scorer, so I would look for something that but overall, I mean, they made it to finals, right? So what do I know? That was a surprise for me. And so then we have that left the All Knights as a 3 captain, and they took 7703, who big improvement over May. They were scoring pieces mid and low on cubes and cones. And then we left with our 4th seeded captain, 9990, who took 2375 with their first pick. Any surprises for you, Will, in these alliances? I mean, and you could see on screen, but obviously we filled out the last few with the 4th picks or the 3rd picks. I personally, I think I still go back to the 2 and 3 surprises there. A little bit surprised that 3944 and 7703 didn't take 1165C. Personally, I know we disagreed on that. But that was a surprise for me.
So I mean, like, this is kind of like how I had predicted it a little bit when we did our warm up.
Oh, wait. Are you saying you want to see your prediction?
Oh, do you have it?
Oh, yeah.
Was it like really bad?
Oh, you think I didn't have it? Okay, so I do have so what you're seeing on screen now is Will's prediction.
I was not ready for this. This is not in the production meeting.
So you're really upset that 1165 didn't take 3944, huh? That's tough.
For nothing more than my bracket. Well, no, I also thought it would have been a good move.
We also this is when we had 698 on board as coming to the event. So, but yes, sorry, I know you wanted to reference your bracket, so I just pulled it up on there for everyone to take a look. You did pretty good.
We can look at our hails. We can really go into bracket.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know the guy, but he's big business playing deals. No,
he is on vacation. I hope you enjoyed
this.
So a couple surprises, not too much for you.
I did think that 2375, I kind of expected them to do a little more low cycling than they were able to do during the match, just because I do like their intake. But they had some trouble with it, like going in and out, and I don't know if they had some power issues, like picking up cubes or something like that. But I definitely had expected them to do a little better than they had done. But I would say, like, overall, like, in terms of how robots did over the entire playoffs, this definitely makes sense for how the alliance is shaked off.
Yeah, and we're gonna look at it. We're gonna look at it
Yeah.
pretty much right now. We're gonna look at, like I said, we had one upset, which was the 3 seed taking out the 2 seed in round 1, and we're gonna take a look at it. It's the one match we're gonna watch video of before finals, and it's pretty interesting. And I think we can probably dive a little bit more into the surprise, at least that I had on paper for me, about the way those alliances broke down. I don't know about you, Will, but chat's dropping some knowledge bombs, and I know it's beyond me. We're done.
I read through it.
I tried to read through it. I couldn't even get
figure
there.
it out. Nope. Yep,
Yeah.
couldn't. It's a lot of words. A lot of big words.
Oh,
Sad.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're gonna peek behind the curtain. We're dumb. Tough.
Happens.
Listen,
Just
as long as the chat's enjoying it, keep posting away.
Hey, it's all good.
I can
It's all
figure it
on
out. I can. Oh, you know what? You can explain it to me further on our Discord server. You can reach out to me and explain that in detail. We actually have a Discord server. We're right on the cusp of 200 members. If you're not in it, I suggest you join. It's great. We also have a Twitter and an Instagram. Feel free to follow us there. And I know I mentioned it before, but we do have a YouTube. All of the matches from the event are uploaded, including the playoffs, which we're going to get to right now. Thank you so much, Mr. Breadloaf, for helping me with that plug. I really appreciate it.
And if your grandma is a huge fan of the show, but your grandma did not get a chance to make this episode of Extra Innings, that's right. It will be on YouTube.
That's right. Graham, you can take a look at this episode tomorrow. I'm not going to say tonight because I might forget. Tomorrow. All right. So let's jump into it. Semifinal 2, right? We can take a look. We can take a quick look at the actual bracket really fast. Oops. There it is. This is how everything shook down. No surprise, we mentioned a bunch already. The number 1 seed does win the event, and everything else plays out as normal in terms of the top seed wins, except for that round 1 match 2, where the 3 seed takes down the 2 seed. The 2 seed would have its revenge then in the lower finals to advance to finals, to advance to the championship finals against the number 1 seed. So let's take a look. See if I can do this correctly here. Yeah. Let's take a look at semifinal 2. Right. This was, for the record, apologies for the bit of a snafu we had with FMS, actually. And the reason why we couldn't display scores or match titles for the entirety of playoffs. Actually, pause. Let me just explain this really fast in case anyone was curious. The way FMS works is it's kind of hard-coded by first, and they accidentally coded it wrong. So it wasn't built for the double elimination bracket. It was literally built for the standard bracket we know from 2021 or 2022 and before, right? So it was a little scuffed. So the awesome team behind the desk literally was doing that on the fly. They were building things and making test matches. So it was all running on the fly. So apologize for the scuffness visually. I know it was a little frustrating for our teams playing in the first couple matches when they didn't literally have a live score feed. We're sorry, but no one's fault. Everyone did their best to fix that. So anyway, getting back to the playoff matches. Oh, wrong thing. Thing.
Shout out to the graphics team. How quick did they get that up?
Oh yeah, that's true. I want to know who's on the graphics team. Not me. It's me. I'm part of it. Anyway. Okay, so I know we don't see the alliance number or the scores, which is a little tough, but this is on the left in blue is your number 3 seed, on the right in red is your number 2 seed. So overall, a couple really interesting tidbits from this. Will, I guess I'll just kind of say my thoughts, and then I'll let you come in at the end here. I think that number 2 obviously should have won this match, and they do. They have they score the low cubes at a much faster rate than the 3 seed, and I think that's what the 3 seed is really missing here. I think 3944 pops off here and kind of proves why I would have assumed they would have gotten picked beforehand. They almost solo 2 high links right by themselves. I do think that, like Will mentioned earlier, that if 3944 just commits to cycling across the field for their cones, they'd have a much higher point potential, right? But they, at times, I mean, this was a free cone, but I think with the swerve, it could just end up being faster for them to cycle across the field and grab the cones that they know. I think that staying on the blue lines for a second here, the reason I was surprised that they took 7755 as a defending robot instead of taking 1165C as another scorer is that what they're really missing here, if you can imagine that, point potential wise, 3944 ends up with 2 high links. They're missing the low row here. What's the difference between the 2 and the 3 right now? It's literally just 1165's low scoring prowess, right? And 7703 makes some interesting decisions in this match where they place 2 mid cubes instead of finishing their low link, right? That was a little odd, right? Because the links are so important. It's way more important than just some random mid cubes. And so, 1165C, if you watch, let me rewind this, right? 1165C does an amazing job this match of just funneling these cubes across the field. And who knows, maybe these 2 practiced this at home right beforehand. I don't know. It's a great strategy. 1165C funnels the cubes, they're doing it right now, across the field and just yeets them. I mean, this one technically, falls kind of right there, but this is perfect for a little hungry hippo like 1165, right? To just pick up the cubes once they're in there and score them. No practice. Yeah. I mean, listen, it worked out great for y'all. It was a great use of strategy for sure. And I was actually really impressed by the end of the event how well 1165C was funneling the pieces across the field. Even 2 to 3 pieces funneled into the community is like that saves cycle times for 1165s, right? So I think that was impressive. And I think that maybe, so 6352 here, the cone score on the Red Alliance, they're clearly going for some mid links, which for the record, I think was a great strategy. 2 mid links and filling the bottom row is the way to go. I think that Red loses this match here because they miss out on some link scores. Like they don't get, I think they miss out on 2 low links here. If I am not mistaken, we can kind of get to the end and kind of look at what we're missing here. Oh, they get 2 low links, right? Yeah, 2.
I'm not sure if they do count one of the cubes, like the second from the left.
Might be all the way out. It's hard to tell. Yeah.
It's so hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. Yeah, and there's one kind of in the middle that might be over the tape line as well. It's just a little hard to tell from this angle. And listen, I get it, right? So if you're 1165, your tank drive, it's harder for you to like truly traverse really fast inside the community, like sidestep. So shooting your cubes mid when you're there is I totally understand that. I do think that the only critique I have for the Red Alliance is to really just score, is to fill the low links like that, you know what I mean? And they go on to obviously win, and they learn from this match, right? They win and make it to finals at least.
Final scores in just a moment.
But this was our one upset. Will, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I do just want to highlight. I'm a huge fan of 7755's driving and what they're all about. I thought that was really cool. They had a 5 teleop cube match against 2 other robots earlier in the day, but they handed 3 game pieces to 3944. I know it's weird to highlight the second pick of the third alliance that is a drivetrain with no cutout in the bumpers, but I mean they put 3 game pieces into the community. Mm-hmm. They handed 2 of those off to the All Knights. One of them was a cone outside the community, so 3 there. So they actually handled more game pieces than Robo Bears did. So just wanted to shout them out for how great of a job they did the whole event driving. I thought it was really cool. In terms of what was awesome about this match was seeing the synergy between those 2 Paradise robots, and definitely what could have been if the third alliance snatched up 9989 from the 2 alliance, what might have happened. Obviously 3944 has an excellent match. This was definitely
it's
the
definitely
start
one of
of
their better
them.
ones, right? I know I don't want to knock 1165 scouting too much. I think over the course of the event, the more consistent team was 6352 for sure.
Oh, totally,
And
totally.
and they had the potential to score high pieces as well, right? So it makes a ton of sense on paper, but I definitely just want to 39-44. I would keep an eye on, right, for the rest of the season, right? If you take last year as an example, they stick with their competition robot from the season, but they grind and they grind and they grind, and they slowly. Right, that it becomes like a really viable pick. So it would not just about how easily they're scoring high cones when it's working, right? When they're scoring, I would not surprise me to see them in the overall ARL Championship Alliance selection go really early, right? Their swerve, they score cones high, they can score cubes high. I could see them going quite early in this selection. So
I definitely see that. I mean, they have all the momentum in the world to rose the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And 6352 I think had just averaged more cones throughout teleop to your point for that. I do think 1165 looks great throughout most of playoffs. I think that they're doing a crazy number of game pieces.
And
them being able
night and day. I'm telling you. I mean, granted, you're
Totally.
right. Or not, you're right. I'm right to myself. I didn't watch them at champs, right? So the change could have happened at champs where they were firing on all cylinders, but it really looked like they were something different at this event. And so I don't know. I don't know, but it was awesome to see. Truly, very much deserving of captaining that number 2 seed to finals.
Definitely.
I will say, it would be remiss if we didn't point out the obvious here. The final scores aren't available, right? But Red misses out on 20 points of balance at the end here, so that's pretty obvious. And they obviously could have won it for them, yeah, for sure. And it's not easy, right? You have 1165 who has a big arm, and 6352 has a big arm. So balancing together with tank drive with big arms is a little difficult, but they got it rolling, and that's part. And it's a huge reason why they make it to finals. So why don't we hop into finals, Will? We're actually, I thought this was going to be a short episode, but we're just having such a good time. We better kick it along here, huh?
We're vibing. Yep.
So finals, pretty much they wasn't exactly close. We have scores on screen this time, which is awesome. Red kind of jumps out from the beginning because they get this balance and auto, which does not get. Oh, you know what? Maybe that was timeout. Pause.
What?
I mean, we have a couple 1165 people in chat. Maybe they can allude, but I don't think 3944 had a balance auto, and 6352 had almost or a balance auto. So that might have been that's probably the differentiator on the pick right there.
I think they had hit their balance earlier also.
That makes
Obviously,
a lot of
I can't
sense.
all the matches, but
That makes a lot of sense. All right, anyway, moving on to finals. Rear view. Little sidetrack. I mean, the strategy is pretty obvious from the number 1 seed, right? They have a really good low cycling robot in 2403 when they commit to cycling low. They both score high cubes in auto, and those are kind of all the high cubes they needed for a 991 to then just start putting up the cones. And yeah, 991 wasn't nails, but it's also their first event and they're growing. Oh, there's the bucket just rolling around the field. Apologies for that bucket.
Bucket.
Yeah. So that's a great tidbit in the chat. Yep. After the last final match, 6352 had a break in their robot, and they were driving with just one side of their drivetrain for all the finals, which is admirable, right? And when a belt breaks like that, if you don't have a replacement, and you can kind of see them, for lack of a better term, flailing around on the field, right? They're literally trying their best to play defense, but it's not.
It's actually not that bad.
It's pretty good.
Though.
Yeah. No,
I'm looking at it.
And I, as someone who drove tank drive in high school and used tank for a long time, it's not easy to drive tank drive with one side of the drivetrain.
They will be helpful in the scoring.
Yeah, and the balance has issues too, for sure. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, to be fair, blue keeps it relatively close here. I mean, look, we have 40 seconds left. Actually, if we go back a couple seconds here, 60 seconds left. They're down by 13. And why is that? Why are they only down by 13 at a minute left? Well, it's because 1165 is nailing it at the low cubes, right? If you look at the low links, they're well on their way to finishing the entire low. you can only imagine that if they had 6352 hitting some mid links, that they'd be pretty close to the Red Alliance in score. And this is kind of what, if we go back to when we were covering on the warm-up show, right? But right before the show ended, I was kind of alluding that I think that a team that scores all the cubes low and all the mid links could beat a team that scores only 1 or 2 high links and all the cubes low, right? I think it's possible. And so it's fun to tinker about what could have been in the finals had 6352 been fully functioning, right? But regardless, the one kind of just takes it to the end. They win by a lot because they get the balance, they get the park. 1165 is kind of caught here on the edge of the bridge. They obviously needed to go for the triple, whereas I'm sure it'd been much more comfortable to go for the 2. So yes, the score is a little bit lopsided in the finals, but with the added information that 6352 is kind of down for the count, it makes sense. I really think that the light should be shown on 1165 and how well. I mean, if we take a look, they almost had 3 low links, right? They're missing that 1 cube that's popping out there. They almost had them all by themselves, right? And of course the 1 seed just powerhouse.
And if 6352 had hit that balance, I mean, that's 12 points right there. Which, that making sense in scouting data is actually, that does make that 39-44 decision like easy, especially like before you watch them for playoffs.
Oh wow, that is really interesting to know. Yeah, so you guys are balancing without break mode. Oof, no wonder you guys were sliding off sometimes for sure. Yeah, that's tough. I don't envy that drive challenge.
Chat insight.
Yeah, right. Chat insight, love it. I do think that it's interesting. We could go back, and look at some of these matches from the 1 seed at the end of the season. Right, they are missing another high link by 1 cone. I'm curious. Our stat guru is on vacation, but I am curious what the season high score is.
I've got it.
Oh, you have it. Oh,
I have. I told you. I pulled them up.
Did his job.
So, the season high score is 119.
And wait. Can I just guess? The season high score is 119 from the first event, and the number 1 seed scored 118 in the finals.
No, that would have been a better story. Yes, it was. It was actually finals 1 for May, 498, and Plasma alone did 119,
yep.
And then it was 114 with this new alliance. So
right. So does it say what match it was for that 114?
Yeah, it was finals 2.
Finals 2. Okay, so let's take a look at finals 2. Right, there's no spoilers here. Obviously, the 1 seed wins, but it'd be interesting to see, right, if there's just 1 cube missing from a low link or 1 cone missing from a high link.
They also do have the advantage of having that auto.
Yes. Huge. Yes.
And then they get park, so that's another 5 points that they do get just from having a 3rd robot.
Yeah, okay, little shout out. I know I don't want to be a homer. I will little shout out Bucket Bot, which doesn't have the bucket on it in finals 2.
Noodle now.
It has a noodle. Little shout out to the students working on that all day. This was the first day. This was the first match they scored their auto cube. So, listen, little shout out to the team working on the Bucket Bot. The bucket is just the noodle bot.
And here we go, finals 2.
Congrats to them on that accomplishment by the end of the day.
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
And this is just a small detail. Bronco bots had been trying to run a 2 cube auto for a lot of the event, and they had turned it back to just 1 cube in mobility, and I don't know why. Probably just focus on cones, I guess.
Well, I can wager a guess for you.
Well, it also didn't hit, but yeah, go ahead.
Let me wager a guess here. I think probably there's a risk. There's a risk when you run a 2 cube, right? Because you have to leave, or 2 cone, whatever the heck. You have to leave, and then you have to come back. And when you come back, if you mess it up, depending on how you miss, you could ramp off the bridge, or you could be touching the bridge. And if you do that, then it negates your auto points, right? And that's bad. So that's reason number 1. I think reason number 2 is that very clearly defined strategy 991 is the cones. They are cones. And by not coming back with another cube, they get to the substation faster than Plasma, so that they don't run into each other, right? And Plasma's like, listen, we'll just clean up all the mid cubes. We're not really worried. We know 1165 is good at like cubes on the ground. We're not really worried about giving them some cubes. We're more concerned about making sure we guarantee our balance point and getting you guys on a different cycle time than us, right? And I think that's one of those two reasons. I'm hoping was the reason, and that's great. Maybe neither two. But I think that could be maybe something that right? Like, let's not risk our like we talk about this a lot. Like, how do the higher seeds lose matches, right? How do one seed lose, right? And it's because they mess up the easy stuff, right? They oftentimes that they're really shooting for these high scores. They know they can do it, but they sometimes miss the easy stuff. And the balance isn't the easy stuff, right? The auto balance that Plasma has in all events is the easy guaranteed point, and it's not worth the risk running it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's for a timing reason, which I hope it is, I mean, that's sick, because they look great. Like, they're literally not getting much way. Plasma plays a little bit of defense just so that they're not in the way of their own station, which is awesome to see. It's the awareness of the team.
Right, yeah, when you know you have a lead like this, like, they probably know, right? Like, listen, out of auto, we're going to have a significant lead. It's worth taking some time and just nudging another team. You know, it goes down to how you design your robot. Like, not a lot of teams firmly secure when they hold the gate. So, you know, a bump and a bruise here and there could cause gate pieces to dislodge easily. It's a really good tool. If you're a powerhouse offense robot, it's a really good tool to have, right? I'm not afraid to run into somebody. I'm not afraid to kind of bump them on the way over to score points, especially when it offsets your yeah, this match, the Red Alliance is firing on all cylinders, right? And I don't think they make a misstep here. Right? Plasma knows they have this game won on balance. They come out real early. Again, they balance with 15 seconds left. You can think about if, you know, Plasma had cycled one or two more cubes in that time span, or 991
trying to pick cube off the ground.
Right. Yeah, maybe they do set the event high score. I mean, the season high score, and that could end up being really important. So really great event, really well played overall. I meant it in the opening. I was really impressed. I'm sure some of the other people on 498 know this, but I was very impressed with the amount of work that teams very clearly put in between ARL May and ARL June, or if they didn't go to May, between the end of the season and June. I was very, very impressed with the work everyone put in, honestly, like very honestly. So I was very impressed at how the playoffs played out. I think there were some creative strategies in. We didn't just see the very prototypical 2 offense, 1 defense, right? We know that this year for this game, that's not a super popular strategy, but in Arizona, we kind of default to that often, right? Because we don't necessarily have a third scoring robot on our alliances, but we didn't really see that as much. This event, we saw some very creative use of feeding robots and things like that, pushing, and so I was very impressed there. So any final thoughts on the playoff score?
No, I do just want to give a shout out to the second seeded alliance in finals and throughout the rest. Like, they lost that match, they got upset, they go to lower bracket, which is always like when you're that top half of teams in terms of seeding and you get pushed that lower bracket, it's do or die time right there. Like, some kicks on or it doesn't. And it really did for them. I mean, they were locked in. I went over and, you know, congratulated them for how well they were doing. And you could just see, like, they were intense for those matches. I was watching. Their drivers were not blinking. They were just, like, eyes open literally the whole time. Like, they were like, I'm doing everything I can to win this. Like, it was awesome to see the competitiveness from that alliance. And not, you know, like every other alliance didn't do as much, but just to see everyone, you know, kind of highlighting how competitive this was awesome.
And the irony there, and this is obviously, you know, if you've been on, like you said, a higher half alliance, maybe you've experienced this, but the irony there is when you lose as a higher seed, you've messed something simple up, oftentimes, right? Unless you've built your alliance poorly in alliance selection, right? You often mess something simple up. So in this case, in semifinals 2 and round 1 match 2. The Red Alliance doesn't balance. They don't double balance, right? And that is a simple thing. But once you lose and once you're on the cusp of being eliminated, that simple thing is suddenly stressful as heck, right? You know that in their next matches when they were very focused about balancing, right? Like, we need to balance, obviously, until 63-52 broke a belt, right, or snapped a belt or whatever. But I just think it's funny how that flips, right? Suddenly, right, you miss your auto that you've been hitting all day. You miss that in playoffs or playoff match 1. Suddenly, it's like you're stressed about the simple things, the things that you would take for granted probably, or not for granted, but the things that should be easy in quals. You're just stressed out. We can move on from the event, right, and take a look at what this means for the ARL Championship going forward. The first thing I want to look at, thank you to everyone who voted in this month's, it's open all the time, this month's ARL Top 5. As a reminder, we don't have side note, we don't have our typical slide guy with us to post all the links in the chat, but you can find the link in the Discord, which, by the way, we have a Discord. You can find it there. We have an ARL Top 5, which is a user-voted ranking of all the teams who have competed in ARL, right? We started it for this year, which is just a way to kind of integrate, I guess, the audience opinion, if you will, not just our own, into who we all feel is the top 5 for the season. So we're gonna take a look at the results of those. You could still vote. We'll cover them again. We'll go over the top 5 again in the warm up for the July event. But this is how the ARL top 5 has shook out after the June event. Some obvious, some not, and I think that's awesome. Right? I think very obvious. 2403 does deserve this number 1 spot. They have taken their robot, which was a very competent low cube and mid cube and high cube cycler, and now they've added the cone aspect back. And yeah, sure, it wasn't the fastest thing, and they missed sometimes, and sometimes they broke the elevator while trying it, but the fact that they have that as a weapon now, they have it for quals, right? Or even playoffs, if they don't want to partner with the best cone scorer, it's huge, right? When you compare the top 2 teams, right, very clearly missing from 498's game is a high cone ability, and the mid cone is shoddy at best, right? And you can kind of look at when they played together, 498 and 2403 played together in the May playoffs, right? They had 498 was on the cone duty, and 2403 was just cycling cubes. And 498 kind of was terrible. So I think if that event re-rolled and 2403 ranked 1, they would pick 991 over 498 for that reason, right? So I think 2403's addition of their cones to their game, they absolutely deserve the number 1 spot. And if they get better, yikes for the rest of us, to be honest. We don't have to cover the teams that have maintained their spots, both 498 and 6413, even though they did not play, maintained their spot as number 2 and number 4 respectively. We have 991 as number 3.
Yeah, I mean, BroncoBots hits the stage, doing great at cones. Still arguably the best cone robot that we've got. I mean, they were able to do 5, 6 on the high, I think, throughout playoffs. Excited to see how they can do it faster, maybe if they can route a little better. I mean, timing was really great in that finals match, but as we've seen from the regular season, is there's more to go, you know what I mean? There's still a higher ceiling. So hopefully they can still push that. I mean, it definitely looks like they can if they just run it faster, pick up, steal some cubes off the ground every once in a while, maybe. So excited for sure. That's them being that 3rd spot. That's all I got to say about 991.
And very exciting and well-deserved. Still rounding out the top 5 is 7703, the Robo Bears. We saw them. I'm excited to see them in the top 5 just because of how much they've grown. The robot has improved between May and June. I think that in May they were dropping a lot of pieces between the human player station and the community, and that in June they tightened that up a bit. Yeah, sure. Cone-wise, they were still dropping a fair number, But cube-wise, they were solid. And solid, like, on an average, right? They were going to give you 3 cubes, 4 cubes, right? Every game, absolutely, we're going to give that to you. And I think that with some, for them, for an improvement would just be to a more conscious placement of those cubes, like we saw in the playoffs. Scoring the cubes mid when you have an open link low, yes, I understand the mid point value by itself is higher, but if you can score those cubes low and create that link, unless 7703 starts to cycle cones, better, right? They're not dropping them. It's just not worth it unless you're completing the link.
Totally. And I think them being in 5th in the voting right now just shows how bottom this team is. I mean, if you've ever interacted with someone from that team, good vibes all around. I mean, they've got a great attitude. Mm-hmm. They're there to, have fun. They're there to work with alliances, do the best to get their alliance to win. And, that's definitely the type of spirit that we want to see from more teams. It's awesome.
And speaking of 7703, do you want to give a shout out to our ARL All-Star?
Yeah, shout out to our ARL All-Star, Emma Lee. She was nominated by a number of students from other teams, so it was really awesome to see her get recognized as our ARL All-Star of the June event. And we'll keep it going through all the events, so make sure for July, students pick up your little ARL slips. I don't have one on me. I don't just,
You don't just carry them around.
I thought about it, but then I was like, that's too much. It's a whole month in between. But definitely make sure to keep those voting. So we had a lot more nominations than we did for the first ARL event. So hopefully we're going to have twice as much this next event. I want to make it hard for those committee members to read through all of them.
Yeah. I mean, I saw some people reading through them already this past event. I was like, that's a lot to get through. Good luck.
We're kind of close.
That's really awesome. I really like that award. And I really think it fits well in the flow of things and in the scope, of ARL. So I really like it. So congrats to her. All right. So last thing we'll take a look at is our championship rankings. These are also posted in our Discord, and they were posted on our Twitter and Instagram. So, if you're not following us or join the Discord, please do so. They saw these first. So these went out last night. These are our championship rankings. I'm not displaying here the rankings for all of the teams. So if you don't see yourself in the top 8 and you're curious where your team has landed, again, check out the social medias or check out the Discord and it'll have the full rankings there. Couple of interesting movers and shakers here.
So this doesn't denote which teams have
Correct.
only done one event. So.
This does not denote which teams have only done one event. If you remember correctly, if you're familiar with ARL, you need to go to 2 qualifying events to officially qualify for the ARL Championship. And we will take your 2 highest points of events, right? So 2403, Plasma, rightly so, is ranking currently number 1 after competing in 2 events with 94 points. 7703, the Robo Bears, we just talked about, number 5 in the ARL top 5, is ranking number 2 with 52 points. Now, 498, 6413, 6388 on this list have not competed in a second event. Oh, and neither has 1165. But we have 7703 at number 2 right now, which is awesome. 7755, I meant 7703, sorry. 7755, squeezing in the top 8 with 35 points, as they have also competed at both events. So some interesting things to see, right? As we kind of talked about before, Plasma has now 2 wins under their belt, 2403. They have 1 win with a ranking score during quals of under 2.5 and 1 win with a ranking score in quals above 2.5. So if we take a look at the third place team, 498, with 48 ranking points, they won the first ARL qualifier with a ranking score above 2.5. So if they were to repeat that performance, they would be at 96 points. So, if we pretend that 498 won the next region or the next qualifier with 2403 and 2403 had above a 2.5 ranking score, they would tie at 96. 96 is a very funny number because if anyone was competing last year, you would remember that we had a 3-way tie atop the ARL Championship rankings by the end of the season, all with 96 points. So very curious to keep an eye on how that develops for the rest of the year. How many teams are going to have 96 points? I don't know.
Who knows? Or if we're going to get a little log jam at 94 points again, which hopefully we don't.
True.
But I will say, Robo Bears, very good job getting to 52 points for them. As far as how that would shake out last year in terms of where their rank would be, is I believe it would have them right at 10th for how last year's rankings ended up being.
Interesting. That's good to know. Yeah, and we've had a lot of our normal the teams that we normally see in our top 8. We haven't seen them compete yet, right? So we're looking forward to seeing a bunch of teams show up in for the later events. I mentioned it, but I promise we're growing every event. And we really hope that you are seeing, as teams that have competed, you are seeing the value in the Arizona Robotics League and the summer series, and that most importantly, your students are seeing the value. Actually, timeout. Most importantly, I hope your program, your school, your district, whatever, is seeing the value, because I know that the dollar value for FRC is hard to pass on schools and districts. Or wallets if you're a community team and you just pay, right? It's hard, right? It's a lot of money for not a lot of potential matches, right? So we hope that you're seeing the value. We're really looking forward to the ARL Championship in October. As a reminder on that, we the top 8 team, or we have 8 alliances, right? Not 4 like we do during the qualifiers. And we will select alliances before the event. So that date hasn't been released yet, but we'll do it on Twitch. We'll do it live, and we will select alliances a couple weeks. Last week was 1 week ahead of time, or last season, sorry, it was 1 week ahead of time. I'm hoping this season it could be a couple weeks ahead of time. There might be an AZ State Championship in there somewhere. That has to happen, or not. That will happen. But you'll have the opportunity to work with your alliance partners ahead of time. So if you want to synchronize autos or help them program an auto, that there'll be opportunity to do that. Yes, to answer your question in the chat, yeah, totally. As long as obviously the other teams are okay with it. As a reminder, a couple other reminders. Cactus High School 498, we are totally fine with. Yes, answer your question again.
Yeah, it will qualify for them.
If you were to bring another team's robot and drive it, the points would go under that team number that's on their bumpers. So it would count as a qualifying event for that robot. They would still need 2 events, and if that team got picked, think about it this way. I have no idea who's driving the robot. It is that team number, right? So you could, yeah. But yes, it'll still get points. It'll still qualify. It can still captain.
It should be a distinct drive team from other drive teams, but other than that, it's just for that event. So,
yes.
I mean, whatever teams need help with. But
that's correct.
It looks like all the teams that have registered so far, little also behind the curtain, I'm the team coordinator, so I email the team saying, please come, which more of it is yes, you can come, because so many people are signing up. Is everyone signing up for multiple events, which is really great. I know last year we had some trouble where some teams didn't, award as much scheduling time for themselves, so that it was harder for them to get to multiple events. But this year, we've already got 30 robots, more than that maybe. Still, half the teams that were in the top 8 last year for seeding haven't even competed at an event yet, which is insane. And some of those robots are bringing multiple robots. So we should have at least 30 robots who are going to be at multiple events. And I'm still waiting to hear back from some teams that express they will register, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so we hope, or the goal would be that you would have a distinct drive team, just like you have a distinct drive team between if you bring multiple robots. So if you bring 4 robots, the hope is that you have a distinct drive team for each robot. And so if you brought someone else's robot to compete for them, the hope is that they would have, again, a distinct drive team. Kind of to touch on that, if you are worried about transportation for your robot between events, going back and forth from the school, your teachers are on vacation, you can't get in to get the robot, you're more than welcome to leave your robots, drive stations, tools, whatever you need at Cactus High School between events. More than welcome. We will find room for them. Whatever makes it easier for you to compete. That way you literally just show up, have a mentor who can't get into the school, or parent, whoever, drive the team over, and they could compete and just leave their stuff there again. Now, obviously that means you can't work on in between events, but if that's what's holding you up in the summer, just literally bring it on by, drop it off ahead of time, whatever the case may be. We can make it work. Just reach out to us via email, Will, or Discord, me, whatever, either of us. It doesn't, whatever is easiest. Okie dokie. All right, so I think that'll about do it. Thank you, Will, for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. It's very fun.
Thanks so much to everyone in the chat, everyone for joining us tonight. We actually might have to move to Thursday nights permanently. Either it was a night, it was like the Thursday night is more popular than Wednesday, or people just really wanted to hang out with us tonight. But I think we had our most active chat of the season tonight. So thank you. Yeah, if you bring 5 robots, that'd be crazy. We'd love that. Bring as many robots, literally. Bring as many, if you have enough students to drive 5 robots, yeah. And, time to build them, that's the goal, right? That's the goal. So please bring them, right?
And I can find drive teams,
True.
too, if we're going to go crazy enough to bring robots that, that many, but yeah.
Alrighty, so we are going to be back. Let's see if I can. Where's the screen? Yikes! Is it this one?
I'm bad at this. Nope, that's not it. Bye, Will. There's the chat on screen.
I'm going.
Huh? I go. Huh? I lost the scene. I made it too. That's tough. All right. Well, we will be back. We will be back next month in July, on the week before the event. So the event is July 28th and 29th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Will. I can't look at a calendar. 28th and 29th. And our ARL warm-up show will be July 26th on Wednesday, where we will take a look at the teams who are registered, our predictions, maybe an interview or two leading into the event, the storylines, and then obviously we'll be back the following Wednesday, unless Thursday's a better night, someone tell me, and we will have another Extra Innings episode. So looking forward to seeing you all then. Obviously really looking forward to our July event. It is going to be our best attended qualifier maybe ever, if everyone who signed up comes. So really looking forward to it. If you have not signed up, please strongly consider signing up. As always, my name is Luke. I am one of your ARL program directors. Thank you guys so much for coming to ARL. We literally couldn't do it if people didn't come, if teams didn't come. So make sure to follow the Arizona Robot League Twitter and the Instagram. They were popping off during the event. We had awesome volunteers that we had way better social media coverage of the June qualifier than we had previously. So make sure you follow us there. And then, like I said, we do have the ARL YouTube, which could use some more subscribers. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe, but I'm just saying we could use more subscribers. Just throwing that out there. And it has all of the most recent events match videos, and we'll have all these episodes. So if you miss a warm-up or an Extra Innings episode, you can find them there afterwards. Kidoki. Most importantly, I hope you enjoyed the ska pre-show music. I'm going to play you out with the same ska playlist. Make ska great again, really. Ska Power Hour is a regular thing at the ARL qualifying events, and we're really just trying to bring ska to the Valley. So till next time, bye everyone. Have a great night. Have a great holiday weekend. Be safe. See you later.
Hey, look, I found the screen that I couldn't find. See you later, everyone.
Losing it. So happy for you.